you have been an instrumental member in creating the improv community in New York City. You first helped set up UCB, then you founded The Pit, and then you founded Magnet. What shortcomings did you notice in existing theaters that inspired you to start your own theater? What were they missing at that point that you wanted to incorporate?
It was culture, as well as like teaching style. I mean, that if you haven't got a feel for me yet, you know that I kind of appreciate a little bit more of an organic style of improv.
Yeah.
And that I feel that you can have that and you can play on a high level, that just because you embrace that doesn't mean you can't turn out work that is worthy of like bigger audiences or being at your top of your game, but also just in terms of an organization, it's like, I didn't like, being around dysfunctional workplaces. And so to me, it was so crazy that like, when we found improv, it was just pure and honest. And there was kind of no bullshit because either something was funny or it wasn't. Nobody fake laughs, But then when it came to organizations, then there was kind of just all kinds of weird dysfunction where it didn't feel like people were being honest. It didn't feel like you were sort of fostering a safe environment. Like, it was, it wasn't like the best idea won. There were cliques and, if you were friends with a certain person, then, you'd get your show or, you'd get like, it became political and it became like high school. And it was just like, geez, did we go through all this to just go back to high school? So I never wanted for the theater I have for me to walk in and get the terrible, horrible feeling of like, oh my God, there's a person here I don't want to see, and like get all stiff and uncomfortable. Like I like walking in the theater and I can talk to anybody, whether it's a performer or it's a staff member and it's an audience member, and not have to worry, not to have to feel like there's, somebody got to make an impression on or somebody that hates you or you hate them or like, there's no animosity. So for me, it just kind of seemed like, well, there's no purpose in that. Like if we could just embrace the ideas of improv, that can make for a better organization. So that's really at the heart of like why I wanted to start my own theater.
If I have to think about like some of my favorite memories in New York City, it's just this summer that I had when I used to just walk down the High Line and go to the Magnet Theater for a class. I used to look forward to it so much and have so much fun over there. Met so many interesting people, had a great instructor. It's just such a core memory. I want to step in your shoes for a minute. It's not easy running a theater. So what are some of the challenges of running a theater in New York City?
Well, part of it was like working on myself, because it's sort of like becoming a father or mother, suddenly like you got this, you got a family you got to take care of. And so whatever shortcomings you have are going to either get in the way of it or you're going to overcome them. So I learned a lot, because there were things that I just didn't know how to do. There were things that I were totally afraid of, all kinds of words and security.
Like what?
Things like, I'd never been to business school. And so I've been kind of more of a creative person. And so when it came to something like bookkeeping, suddenly I was in a position where it's like, that was the thing I was afraid of. And I was like, suddenly I had to do all the bookkeeping, you know what I mean? And so, through trial and error, I would just be, working 18-hour days, just trying to get the books reconciled and like learn about that stuff and not really have any mentors and things like that. And then finances, finances is scary, like money's scary. Cause geez, what if we go under, we owe money or we're not able to bring in money. Like, there's so much fear involved with that, but then once you start experiencing it, it's like, okay, something happens and you lose money or like there's a fee that you got to pay. Suddenly, oh, there's a tax. Like, they just passed a new real estate tax, blah, 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 so that first thing is just like kind of, you yourself running the place have to be healthy and do things in a constructive and productive way, you know?
Yeah.
But when it comes to that, like, you also need people to do the same thing, you know? Now, they can't do that stuff if you don't know how to do that. And so I think early on, I was learning how to do that. And, you know, at first, you're just happy to get any help. So anybody's like, hey, you know what? We need to install like a lighting system, blah, blah, blah. Sure, I'll do it. And then this person doesn't know a thing about what they're doing. And then it's like, we just paid $2,000 to this person and they did like crappy job, so at first you kind of like, you think it's people, like, it's just like, oh, I don't know, that person's likable. Yeah, great. Do the job. You got to learn how to hire people. In order to do that, you got to know how to do the jobs. You got to know what's required of them, how to communicate the objectives. It's just like teaching improv, that it's all the same thing, is that, if people don't know what their roles are, they know what their expectations are, what the parameters are, you don't encourage them, you don't reward them, you don't correct them when they need to.
Yeah.
And then there's times where you have to be protective, like your mother goose, you're fighting off the predators to protect the little baby chicklings, that you have to protect the space. So sometimes there's toxic people that enter in, like that. Some student comes in and there's, they got some kind of hostile vibe to them, and they're like making people feel uncomfortable. And they're like, okay, well, you have to talk to that person, you kind of find out what the deal is. And it's like, so you're the, as much as it could feel like, oh, this is like really fun space and like, it's just all love and hugs and kisses, you have to also defend your kingdom, like you have to protect your kids, and so you learn how to do that. And hopefully, if you're constantly reinforcing these things, you don't have to do it too often. But in the beginning, if you're not able to kind of make it clear as to like what's acceptable in this environment and what's not, people, you start getting those situations where it's like, okay, there's a toxic person, and now there's a lot of people that are been harmed by this person now, and this person's really deeply embedded, and that becomes really hard to kind of like extricate them. And you don't want to hurt their feelings, you don't want to destroy them as a person, and but there's all these other people that are harmed, and you got to like help them heal. And it's kind of like, but if you get to the point where you can prevent it, you get rid of all that sorrow. So in the beginning, there are lots of times where there are crises, and kind of like without the experience, there are times where it's like, oh, if I would have known better, this probably would have happened, but there's always surprises like that.